Hey everybody, runners and beer drinkers and coffee connoisseurs and lovers of all things Portland. My name is Nathan Freeberg and you are watching the Oregon Brewery Running Series show. I'm here down at the Commons Brewery with Josh Grgas.
Got it.
Is that right?
Impressive.
G-R-G-A-S.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't quite sure how to say that, so I'm really glad that I asked you.
You just say it confidently and
Grgas,
then everything works out.
I thought
even
it was
if you pronounce it wrong.
Grass, maybe?
Yeah.
And just like the, missing an S or whatever, but...
I remember the biggest butchering ever was I played basketball my whole entire life.
Okay.
And at a basketball camp one year, I won some award at the conclusion of camp. And I knew I won when I saw a moment of panic on the camp counselor's face trying to announce it. And he panicked and just said, Josh George.
Yeah, that's a couple letters or
And I'm like,
correct.
all right, I'm going to get up confidently and see if anyone else gets up, if there's a Josh George in the crowd.
And I'm just going to go for it. Well, that's what you got to do. You just got to have confidence. You got to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
You got to just be who you are. So thank you. So we're going to have a great conversation today with a great person and a great brewery here in Southeast Portland. Josh is the marketing brand manager, co-owner.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk all things Commons Brew. We're going to talk all things Brew Running Series, maybe dive into little things about Portland. Before we get there, we have 2 discount codes. If you've been watching these at all, you know that if you use Commons Free, the first 5 people to hop online, you can click on that link that I provided there in the description. Use Commons Free, and you can run for free at the Commons Brewery on June 3rd. Or use Commons 5 and get $5 off. Mm-hmm. Josh, are you a runner?
I am, actually.
You are? Fantastic. Yeah. Are you going to be running that day? Do you happen to know?
I feel like I need to just make sure everything's running smoothly for the other runners.
That's probably a good idea.
I'd like to run, but I just want to make sure.
Well, just let us take care of that. You can run. You can come enjoy
We'll talk about that off mic.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, we don't need to have
I would love to run.
Okay, fantastic. What kind of runner are you? 5K, marathon?
Yeah, 5K.
Okay.
Yeah, I have bad knees and back from basketball, so once I go over that 5K mark, I start to get really achy. And I also am not really... I don't have the concentration and the discipline for distance running, so I like to run not super athletic, but I like to run as fast as possible. Okay. So I haven't done an actual 5K for 6 months other than just so it might be a good opportunity to see if I can beat my personal record.
Well, there you go. Well, our races are all untimed. They're very laid back. We want everyone who can participate, whether you're going to walk it and take 45 minutes or those sometimes speed demons are 17, 18 minutes, something like that. So
maybe I shouldn't run because I don't want the aftermath. You get contacted. Commons is a really cool location. That Commons guy was pretty aggressive. He was really,
Well, we can talk about that. We'll figure that out.
Okay, cool.
So I want to talk a little bit about kind of your story, how you got into the beer industry, about Commons, obviously, and kind of talk about what makes a great beer. So why don't you take me back to the beginning?
Yeah.
Well, how did you get into the beer industry? How did you come to be a co-owner in a brewery and doing all this stuff? Was that... always your life's dream from a young lad growing up. Where'd you grow up?
New Jersey.
New Jersey,
yeah,
okay.
Not exactly a haven for beer.
Not really.
Not yet either.
Yeah.
No.
Not going to be.
Before we get going, do you want...
I do. Actually, I was just thinking...
I happen to have one open right now.
Oh, fantastic. I have this one at home.
Yeah, that's the classic, and we'll probably talk a lot about that. But
I asked you to share a couple of beers that you feel really represent the brand and kind of talk a little bit about what these are. So what? I didn't catch the name on that one. Is that the...
So,
I'll let you...
Camera. Yeah, this is Citrus Myrtle.
Myrtle.
So it's kind of on the tail end. It was our latest seasonal. It's mostly sold out at this point.
Okay.
So years ago, our first fresh hop beer, we had access to Meridian hops, which at the time was the new hop variety. It's only grown in Oregon, now on 2 farms. And it was built. We'd never used Meridian hop. It had just got a name. It went through its experimental phase and everything. Okay. And the descriptors were, citrus, lemon peel, juicy fruit, and Sean, our head brewer, was like a sour beer. Sour Farmhouse Ale would really match. Yeah. And so we made a beer called Fresh Hop Farmhouse Ale that was so popular. I think at the time it might have been definitely one of the few sour fresh hop beers.
Okay.
So when you think fresh hop beer, you think IPA, pale ale, classic, black IPA or Cascadian dark ale, if you need to call it that. And this was a really great alternative.
Okay. What's the name again?
Citrus Myrtle.
Citrusy.
Yeah.
Oh, Citrus Myrtle.
Yep. Yeah. So Myrtle's a kind of regular offering where it's this dry hopped sour farmhouse beer.
Okay.
And this year, with the really kind of terrible weather we had, we were wanting to construct a drink at the end of end of winter that kind of reminded us of summer.
Yeah.
So we took our Myrtle, our base beer, and then added yuzu juice and grapefruit and orange peel. So yuzu is a mainly Japanese citrus that's really, actually, it's not really an eating citrus. It's prized for its zest and juice, and the juice is intensely acidic and also really fragrant and floral. So kind of that nose, that little zesty, citrusy nose, most of that's actually coming from the yuzu juice.
Okay. Do you have any tips for smelling and tasting beer, or what's your...
Well, first you got to look at beer, and then...
That's really good.
So,
what am I looking
a couple
for?
things. Is it clear? Is it cloudy? Do you see any particulate in the beer? What is the head like? So the head's the foam on top. Yep. And then what is the lacing like? So this beer has some pretty nice lacing on it. So those are the little foam bubbles that form. And sour beers tend to not have that much lacing because the acidity kind of breaks down the proteins.
Don't have that much. Okay, interesting.
And so looking at the beer is going to tell you, obviously, if it's light or dark, that's going to lead you into a flavor direction.
This is light?
Yes, very light. Moderately hazy.
Okay.
And haziness, very controversial topic in the beer world right now.
This is really good.
Yeah, this is just crushable.
All the technical stuff aside, this is delicious. Yeah.
And then a light swirl and smell. What do you pick up in that?
I'm really bad at this.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's bad at tasting. I think it's more of like kind of a language gap.
Yes,
and also a confidence gap.
Yeah.
So I know I've learned over years that everyone has pretty good palates, but they just don't
know what it's called,
know how to describe it, or they don't really have the confidence in. I've gotten some weird descriptors from people, and they're very sheepish about it.
Yeah,
and
like garden hose, or
yeah, that's a wine one. That's like the classic wine one. So
I mean, the citrus. I mean, it's obvious because it's called the citrus, but I'm just smelling and tasting all kinds of citrus. I love citrus stuff. Anything citrusy. So that's
This will prevent scurvy. It's good.
So I'll take this on my next ship voyage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so
that's really good.
We really, in general, like to make very refreshing, balanced beers.
Right. Is that part of the farmhouse tradition or style or whatever?
Yeah, that's a whole can of worms that maybe we don't have time for, but just the kind of general high glossing thing. Sure. There's been books written about it that essentially boil down to farmhouse saison is the kind of alternative term, French for season. It's more of a beer philosophy rather than a style. And so the main story and the mythology around farmhouse ales are these were farm-to-farm breweries making beer to be consumed by the field workers. So generally they were using ingredients that they had on hand, making a low to moderate alcohol beer that would be really thirst-quenching.
Well, you've succeeded. This would I'm just checking our levels here.
Yeah,
this would be a really good post-run beer, I think.
I totally agree.
I'm gonna have some more.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I totally agree. Post-run beer. I know Block 15 down in Corvallis, they always make a beer for the Corvallis Marathon, and usually it's some light, maybe some lightly acidic beer.
Maybe this will have to be our official Brew Running Series.
That'd be great.
Beer.
Yeah. We'll also have probably around the time of the run another kind of tart beer style called Gosa, which is a German wheat beer that's acidified, and then it also has we're adding red sea salt in ours. So you get a little bit of electrolyte boost.
Exactly. I was just going to say you need that to prevent cramping. Yeah,
exactly. So that could also be a post-run beer for the runners that attend.
So let's go back. Tell me, how did you get into beer? And cheers, by the way.
Cheers. Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm at your place, so thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. So in college, I went to college in New Jersey where I grew up, and a friend of mine, we kind of got into wine. He took a wine appreciation class, kind of got nerdy about it, and we had this amazing, in the town of Madison, New Jersey, there's this place called Gary's Wine and Marketplace, which still one of the best bottle shops I've ever experienced in my life.
Is that Gary Vaynerchuk, the wine library guy?
I actually don't know. I should check into that. It's a little local chain in northern New Jersey. They have like 4 or 5 locations. And so huge beer selection, huge wine selection, liquor. You're allowed to have liquor in stores. It's not regulated like it is here. Amazing charcuterie selection, cheese, breads, like all kinds of other.
Which you guys have here.
Yeah,
cheeses, right?
Yeah, exactly. So not surprisingly, that was a formative experience for me.
Yeah,
kind of led me down this path.
Clearly, yeah.
But we noticed the most expensive beers were around the same price as the least expensive wines, and so we started buying fancy beer just out of curiosity.
Any brands I might recognize? Or are they all...
we were like, I got really interested in Belgian beer right away. So the classics. The first time I had a Duvel, really high carbonated, strong golden ale, classic Belgian beer. It's carbonated to like champagne levels.
Right. Very bubbly.
And I didn't know what I was doing, and I poured it into the glass, kind of like I would any other industrial lager or something, and 90% of my glass instantly filled with foam. And now I know because of how they make the beer,
right?
They have a lot of head retention. So we're talking about head, where the foam doesn't necessarily collapse really quickly. And so I kind of watched this beer and patiently was waiting to be able to drink it, and the foam was just staying there. And I'm like, what do I do? I don't know how. Like, can't physically drink this because it's all foam.
You get like a straw and go under the.
Yeah. And then finally, I just decanted some foam and drank it, and I didn't know I was drinking a beer.
Wow.
In terms of sensory experience,
sure.
Like, this is really champagne-y. It's very dry. There's fruity notes, and a light went off in my head. And then I moved to.
How old are you? This is college?
Yeah, this is college.
Okay.
Yeah, this is so. I mean, I was legally buying beer. I was 21.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah. So I actually, buying beer for other underage people. After I got really nerdy, I was like making them. All right, I'll buy you the 30 pack of PBR.
Good beer. Yeah.
But you're gonna have to drink this Chimay Blue. You need to try it.
Educating the underage drinkers of New Jersey.
Yeah. So we had like a little nerdy culture club in our dorm room, basically.
Awesome.
Which was really fun. So we were trying. I mean, we kind of like methodically went through the beer set there, and I got hooked. And then I lived in New York City for a year and worked in finance for a book publisher. And in my spare time, visited a lot of the craft beer bars in New York City. And then in 2007, bought a one-way plane ticket to Portland.
Wow!
To get a job in the beer industry.
Wow!
Yep.
So that really was your...
Yeah.
Wow,
I felt this like existential dread sitting in my office in Manhattan doing something I don't like doing.
It's like a lot of people have a existential dread story
at 24
that led them into the brewing.
I think so.
World.
Honestly, that's one of my main. The brewing industry is really collaborative.
Right.
It's might be one of the least competitive industries out there. I don't know too many businesses where you can go to your direct competitor, someone you're competing for.
Right.
Shelf space or retail foot traffic,
customers.
And they'll share ingredients, share trade secrets, share recipes, and a lot of that is born out of the homebrewing culture, where one of the main you brew more as a homebrewer. You brew more beer than you can drink, and so you give it away to a lot of people and get feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in that kind of extends to the craft brewing world. But my other theory is, for most people in this business, in this industry, it's their second job. And they were choosing to leave something like finance, where they were making good money, to follow a passion, knowingly that they were going to take a huge salary cut and work more hours, and honestly work way harder.
Right.
And so that passion kind of still drives, because everyone's made this decision. We're kind of all in it together.
Yeah.
We're like dumb romantics that are trying to make a business.
No, it's good, because we all get to live vicariously through those decisions that you've made, and get to enjoy good beer. And wow. Yeah. So what was your first job in the brewing industry? In Portland. I guess it's 10 years ago now. So
it'll be 10 years in July.
Okay.
And so I kind of loafed around a little bit, to be honest.
Okay.
And
also a common story, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Read books, made pizza and bagels at home. I did have to take like a finance job for about a year, and then I had an opportunity for a promotion, and I just turned it down and quit, and then went on unemployment and volunteered at breweries. I bottled at Cascade when they didn't even have the barrel house over here. Everything was out in Beaverton still. Beer festivals, anywhere I could network. And then through a friend of my wife's, I got a job at Stone Barn Brandy Works, which is a little small distillery on Powell Boulevard and like 19th, basically.
Oh, I know what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really, really tiny mom and pop distillery. So I worked for them part-time, made whiskey mashes, learned how to distill spirits, alcohol proofing, chopped a lot of fruit. And then I also almost simultaneously got a job at Beermongers.
Oh, okay.
And quickly became the manager of the store.
Wow.
So both of those businesses, I was the first employee that they hired, and they were all young, kind of evolving businesses.
Wow, okay. And this is like 07, 08, 09 time
yeah,
frame?
09.
Okay.
10. Yeah, somewhere. I think both of those kind of happened in that time frame.
Okay.
And kind of simultaneously, I was entering beer and homebrew competitions and
brewing your own stuff.
Yeah.
That, sure.
I was brewing like 10 gallons of homebrew a week, splitting it between different carboys, doing fermentation projects. Just trying. I mean, I dumped a lot of beer down the drain, but I was just more into like learning variables and understanding ingredients. And
it's all a lot of experimentation, right?
Yeah. What happens if I add this yeast?
Sure.
In this carboy and a different yeast in another carboy, or dry hop with 2 different hops. Add different ingredients and just split batches and then taste them side by side and see what the differences were.
That's cool.
It was still, I think,
are those the good old days? Is that
those are definitely fun. we have the luxury that we're a pretty small brewery that can still experiment, and so we still do a lot of projects like that here.
What is your capacity or barrel sizes? I think
so. We have a 15 barrel brewing system, and we'll probably brew around 2,500 barrels this year.
Okay,
so we're kind of in the middle of the pack in Oregon. And
do you like that? Like, is that the plan, or are you like going to take over the east side here, or like
no,
you like your size?
We want to just stably take over our little corner of the east side. That's good. I mean, there's the business reality of we need to grow a little bit more to make it a sustainable business, but honestly the goal is a little bit bigger than we are now. Okay. So we can stay nimble and flexible, and we're not turning this into like a processing facility. It's still a brewery, and we can touch everything, and because it's a lifestyle thing. We're not going to make a lot of money off of this, but we really care and love the beers we're making.
It's more of a passion than a paycheck, I guess. I mean, obviously you have to have a paycheck, otherwise got to go back to the finance world. But maybe
there's a way to combine the both.
Yeah, exactly. So then did you meet Mike and Sean at some point in that journey and said, hey, let's open a really cool looking brewery?
So around the time I met, probably in 2010 or 2009, I met Mike at a homebrewing aftermath of a homebrewing competition. Both of our beers won medals at the competition.
Oh, awesome!
And there was an organized tasting of all the beers for the medal winners at a homebrewer's house. And I had read that he was in the process of getting his garage licensed, basically on Clinton and 42nd. Okay. And I was thinking about doing the same thing in my garage, which was a rental house. Looking back now, that never would have happened, but I was crazy enough.
Lord wouldn't have been too happy with that.
No, but I had full barrels in there and everything. And so Mike, we should finish this beer because it's a good segue. So Mike,
I'll just have a little more of this one.
Yeah, go for it. Mike won a silver medal for a beer called Urban Farmhouse Ale, which is now our flagship beer.
This is great. I think I said this before. But I have this in our refrigerator at home right now, and that's awesome. It's lovely.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
I love hearing that. Yeah. Because we wanted to make. I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but we want to make really refreshing, food-friendly beers. Our motto's gather around beer, and Urban Farmhouse is a great illustration of that, where it's a light, refreshing. Go for it. Yeah. Really food-friendly. We love. I mean, our favorite parts.
Get a good.
There you go. Urban Farmhouse Ale.
I love your label design too.
Thank you.
It's unique. It's very. It seems like some breweries, nothing wrong with this, but are going with more. I don't know how to describe it, but I just like it. Looks very classic. Looks very classy.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. You don't do this part. You hired that out, or you have a graphic designer?
It's kind of a combination of a couple different designers and then some guidance by us. Okay. My Beermongers days informed me a lot about looking at beer labels and what sticks out on the shelf. And I kind of learned by doing manual inventory there. So I do all my ordering by stocking the cooler and then looking at the cooler and seeing what was empty in the shelves, or what was running low. And I noticed that I had a harder, so I would like stand on the other side of the cooler and just look and kind of go, oh, I'm out of Alameda Yellow Wolf IPA. All right, check that down. I need a case of that. I noticed it was easier to find labels that had a lighter backdrop, and then some, kind of simple color scheme with a big strip across. So that was
just like
that was intentional.
Okay.
So I always call it like the grocery store test. So like go into a New Seasons and like stand with your back against the wine section and look at the beer cooler and see what pops out. For those of you that are interested in opening up a brewery and labeling, like that's very important.
How to open up a brewery, runner one.
Yeah, you should be able to see. You should be able to see your labels in a sea of labels.
Yeah. Brilliant.
From the other side of the.
Well, see, now everybody's going to go and change their labels, so you're going to have to.
Well, I mean, you can go in. There's a definite trend that we weren't the first to do this. There were predecessors where. Really big fan of Heater Allen, and they also have very simple, elegant labels.
It's amazing.
Me. Yeah, so
that's one thing I found about doing these conversations over beer is that there's a lot of burping you have to be careful of. Yeah,
off mic. Don't want that. No laughing, no sneezing, no burping.
None of that. Rules. Yeah, definitely no laughing. So sorry, I keep distracting us too.
Yeah.
So you met up with Mike, home brewing competition.
Yeah. So we traded
garages.
Beers.
You're like,
I kind of grilled him. I'm like, hey, you're the guy that's opening up the brewery in the garage, and he was like, how do you know that?
Creepy.
I have an office job and I read everything on the internet all day because I have nothing better to do.
I'm bored in my current profession.
And we kind of kept in touch, and then shortly after I got the job at Beermongers and quickly became the buyer there. And around that same time, Mike got his licensing in the garage, and so I became one of his first accounts. And so he was brewing,
licensing in his garage for other people to come and...
No, for him to be able to produce and sell beer. So the Commons, I mean, kind of the seed of this whole... backing up a second, kind of the seed of this whole brewery is kind of an experiment to see if the federal government would license a backyard garage as a commercial brewery. And they did. And so...
Wow.
Mike...
that's a federal thing, huh? I guess I didn't realize
Yeah, federal and state.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's different... Like, that would just be a brewery versus a brew pub where you can actually have people visit. Like, that would never be allowed. But, and
you can't start a brew pub in your garage.
It'd be great if you could, though.
That would be great.
One of my favorite breweries that's closed now is up in Washington, Acadian Farms. And it was up in... oh, my God. I can't remember the name of the town. But in the Gorge. And it was a shed in their backyard.
Wow, that's
You'd have
cool.
to walk through the front gate to get there, and they just had a couple beers on tap, and there's kids running around, and they were mainly like a cooperative farm.
Okay.
And on their personal property, the wife would come out every now and again and have some like food and snacks for everyone.
I just made this in the oven, like it's hot. And
it was. I mean, that's
fun.
I think all of our fondest beer memories aren't. Obviously we drink a lot of really good beer that we remember and everything, but it's moments like that where you're having a shared experience that feels really special, and I think beer should be a happy thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and not to take us down another tangent, but that's sort of the whole point of the Brew Running series. It's like, for me, running and beer, I could add coffee to that list too, but like some of the best conversations, the best moments of life have been in one of those three settings, and so bringing two of them together and set it at a cool brewery like yours, or the other ones is like, it's like, this is awesome. Everyone's going to be happy. Like, you can't not have a good time at this. So
my favorite, my favorite moments at, say Craft Brewers Conference or whatever, was this, abundance of amazing beer.
Right.
And looking back now, if someone was like, I had this amazing night. We did this and this and this. What beers were you drinking? And I'm like, I have no idea. But I remember that conversation I had with Steve Jones. About cheese and his family and traveling in Europe or politics or whatever, and that's the formative experience. Yeah.
So for you, do you think it's more about? Does it have anything to do with the beer, or is it more about? Where is it? Gathering around beer, like the gather part. Like, I think, what's more important to you, the gather or the beer?
I think they're both essential.
Sure.
And so we kind of.
But let's say that you were really interested in. I don't know, chocolate. So you created a chocolate place that brought people together. Is that what excites you more about the work that you're in, is like bringing people together around? Obviously, you have to have a passion and love beer. But
I mean,
that's a tough question.
That is a tough question. I think, like I philosophically think everything is in the gray area, so I think it's both.
Sure.
Honestly, like going back to beer, it's got to be good beer, because that's going to be distracting if it's bad beer. And like part of the vehicle and the common ground is I've met so many wonderful people in the beer industry where it just initially started out as a beer relationship and then it expanded and blossomed into something else. But we still have that kind of meeting point.
Absolutely.
Back to enjoying beer, nerding out about beer, being excited by it.
For sure.
And the same thing, I actually, like, one of my good friends is the owner of Woodblock Chocolate.
Oh.
And he, makes amazing chocolate.
Yeah.
And that's a component of it. But really, he was like, why did you open up a chocolate place? And he had a previous business with his wife making furniture. They sold that company, and chocolate was next because they were just looking for another family business to run together.
And chocolate's delicious.
They thought chocolate's delicious. They have 2 kids. They thought it would be interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so kind of those two elements always weave together, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But getting back...
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So Mike was operating out of the garage, selling out of the back of his pickup truck, and then he decided to sign a lease on our previous location down on Stevens, right by Ladd's Addition, which is a really small version of our current location, and brought myself and Sean Burke on because he was, leaving the garage and graduating up to a commercial brewing system, and so the 3 of us kind of banded together and transitioned into the Commons.
Was birthed the Commons.
Yeah.
So what does the name mean?
So initially, when Mike was in the garage, it was called Beetje Brewery, Beetje, which is a Flemish word for little bit.
Okay.
And I could see, the thinking you're having to do. Early on, I carried, it was Beetje Urban Farmhouse Ale.
Beetje,
and I'd put it on tap at beer mongers, and people would be intimidated by saying it out loud.
I want the B one.
Yeah. And so, I mean,
what
I think everyone...
A little bit?
Yeah,
Okay.
because he was brewing 2 kegs at a time.
Sure.
So it kind of, it's pretty sweet. And
maybe a little bit too clever of a name.
Yeah, maybe. I think, a key point for business is to have a good product and also have something that people can say. So obviously Commons is pretty easy to say, but we all kind of went into it. The beers that we really love are balanced, easy drinking, moderate alcohol, and it kind of feeds into that gather around beer element. And so common ground, the Commons, the common area.
Right. A university, the Commons is usually the gathering spot of... Okay.
So kind of all
That's
that
cool.
stuff feeds into this notion that we want to make really well-executed, interesting beers, but just because something is, interesting and complex doesn't mean it's not drinkable.
Right.
So I think, Urban Farmhouse or Citrus Myrtle are great examples of beers that are 5% alcohol, really refreshing. Kind of you could crush a whole pint of it pretty easily, or you could just nurse and sip on it and appreciate it.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's interesting as I get older. I love porters and stouts and those thicker, heavier beers.
Yeah.
As I get older, I found that I would way rather grab one of these, especially on a warm day or something like today. It's like almost 75 degrees outside.
Yep.
And this is a much better beer to have around your house because I think it goes with more food options even. And it's interesting how our tastes change as our palates evolve. I think a little bit.
I can't drink. I'm 33 now, and I straight up can't drink like bourbon barrel aged beers anymore. Outside of like
just a little tasting,
a little taste
agree.
of it. I
agree,
can't.
Yeah.
Like I used to when I got into craft beer. I think like so many people, I went over this hump where my gateway was Belgian beers, like I said.
Right.
But then I got into IPAs and stouts, porters, really heavy, robust stuff, barrel-aged beers.
Yeah.
And that's all I drank for a couple of years. The hoppier, the better. And then I hit this like kind of peak with it and then went down the other side, and essentially now I drink like lagers and Saison.
Yes, exactly. I love a good lager or something like this.
Yeah.
Is this a Saison? Is that what
so
these are?
Stylistically a Saison.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you describe, we've kind of been doing it this whole time, but for someone who doesn't know anything about Commons, what's your elevator pitch line to them of Commons is this type of brewery, fill in the blank?
Yeah, that's honestly, backing away a second, something that we struggle with a little bit because I think we do so many different things.
Sure.
But essentially, like the elevator pitch is like we make interesting, drinkable, refreshing beers that you can enjoy with friends and family.
Is that sessionable idea? I saw that on your website.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. The sessionable term is getting kind of complicated, but these are historically beers where low to moderate alcohol and you can drink a lot of pints over a session.
And that was the thought I read something. It was like guys at work, they could have that at lunchtime because they could still go back to work. Like I don't know if there's factory workers in London or something.
Yeah,
back
I mean
in the
that's
day.
the farmhouse ale, the field workers having a drinkable, potable beer because we're thinking a lot of beer consumption was safe because it had to be boiled, so you're pasteurizing the liquid
in the water.
Yeah, before modern plumbing, there's a lot of variables in water quality. Yeah. So that that's it's part of the mythology with these styles of beers.
Sure.
And so the sessionable thing, I always imagine like my knee jerk is like, a guy in a tweed jacket in like a rainy London pub, like conspiring to like having like 7 pints of mild and with his buddy conspiring to like undermine the Queen or something like that. But but now it's expanded, and I think there's this great appreciation for beers that are 2 to 5% alcohol, but that are full flavored. I mean, we have a beer that's 2.8% alcohol downstairs.
Oh wow! An average beer is between 5 and 6, right?
Yeah, that seems fair. Like 6 is kind of. There's definitely over the last 5 years been kind of a creep upwards in alcohol. Like back in my day in 2007, an IPA was 6.5% alcohol. Now it's 7.5% alcohol generally.
Interesting.
And so this this session saison that we have downstairs, 2.8% alcohol, but it still has a lot of flavor. It's definitely dry, but I mean that barely counts. Like that's absolutely that you could argue that's a morning beer. Yeah.
Wake up in the morning, have a few of those. That's the I'm from Minnesota originally, and they had I'm trying to remember what it was called, because you could only sell alcohol in liquor stores, like Target and like the grocery stores. It had to be a different type of beer, and I think that is like a 5.2 beer.
There's a lot state by state. There's a lot of rules. That,
and so we would call those the high school beers because you could go to Target and get it or whatever.
I love that. But, we're pretty lucky in Oregon that we can buy almost anything anytime we want.
And on Sundays, which is some states you can't do that.
I forgot about that visiting New Jersey. I totally forgot the last time I was back there that you can't buy alcohol on Sundays.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
I think
and there's some counties that have like complete blue laws on Sundays. So like you can't, like all retail is closed outside of like essential stuff like a grocery store and everything like that. But
like in a deep south or something, like very religious or
I don't know. It's just weird. Just weird municipal laws that haven't been overturned yet.
Interesting. So I want to sorry, I'm just staring around. I want to talk a little bit about your space here.
Yeah.
Was this a tile factory or something?
So, it was like a flooring tile warehouse.
So what have you guys done to it? You can't, I'm just looking at their monitor here, you can't really see, but there's lots of exposed brick over here. There's, I don't know, these big cement beams. It looks very cool.
Thank you.
And right where we're at is this platform that you said you use for like private events and educational things. So what did you do to renovate it, if anything?
So we had to
obviously
do a little bit
the brewery equipment, but
right. We had to do a little bit of demolition. So kind of, actually, you can see kind of in the background there, it's open, windowed. There were some structures over there, offices, a bathroom that we had to tear down. There were floorboards going across the ceiling over here. So we had to kind of take those out, and we had to remove a lot of the joists and everything. That was the big component. Is like we need to expose this beautiful roof. Again.
It's a
it's an old building.
It's amazing. I don't know how else to say it. All open, that open floor. How old is it?
It was built in 1919, if I remember correctly. Wow. Yeah. So it's a historically protected building.
It is.
Nothing significant happened. It's just old and still standing. Maybe in 100 years, you'll be like, home of the Commons Brewery.
Yes.
That's why it's historically
exactly.
protected.
That's your new goal. That's your new.
So we kind of had to do a little bit of demolition, a lot of cleanup, because it's been a lot of different things. There was a foundry at one point. It's changed hands a lot of times. So there's definitely a lot of like industrial buildup. We had to like pressure, sandblast. The roof and the brick over there to kind of clean it up.
Was this second level here?
So everything else is a blank slate. So this was where we're sitting. This was built up during construction, and there's also another kind of mezzanine lofted space on the other side. And so,
can people like rent this for weddings and whatnot?
Yeah, we rent it out.
Cool.
You can either use the bar downstairs or we can set up a bar up here.
Sure.
We love renting it out. And then we have our kitchen provided by Steve Jones, the cheesemonger.
Right,
so they cater the events and everything, sandwiches, salads, small plates.
And who's Steve Jones, for those who don't know?
So he's a world-renowned cheesemonger, famous cheesemonger based in Portland. And he has a couple businesses now. And with this space, in our old location, we didn't have food.
Right.
Bring your own food, and sometimes we had snacks, and we would do beer dinners in there and everything. And we knew with this space, we wanted to be open all the time. So we're open 7 days a week from noon to 10. And with that, there's an expectation that we're going to have food.
You gotta have.
None of us are really experienced with food, so we decided to partner with someone that knew more than us.
Smart.
And we love that experience of. I love beer and cheese and charcuterie. Really good bread with beer. That's a meal to me.
Beer and bread. What else? Do you need?
My family's from Croatia, and on the Dalmatian coast there, it's one of the most beautiful strips of the world. But essentially, meals are really good bread, prosciutto, sheep's cheese, olives, and then wine.
You don't need much else.
Oh, it's perfect. Yeah. So it's in
awesome.
my that experience is kind of in my DNA.
Yeah. So are you the food guy here then? Are you in charge of food, or is that
Steve's kind of
Steve,
they're kind of in charge of food and everything, and we provide as much guidance as we can. So it's operated. It's kind of think of it like a permanent pop-up or like a food cart inside the building.
Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of how it operates.
The food, again, you can't see it, but it's basically the kitchen and stuff is right under this, right?
Yeah.
It's all kind of right there. So what? Yeah. You don't have a lot of food here, but you have some pretty cool items.
Yeah, I mean the menu's built around. Expertly kind of selected charcuterie, salami, and then cheeses from all around the world, definitely with an American focus.
So fun, yeah.
And then really well-constructed sandwiches and salads and everything.
Okay. So do you, Sean's the head brewer?
Yeah, so Sean's the head brewer.
Does Sean or you or anybody else work with Steve to kind of say this, this is something coming out, let's pair some.
So we always have
a
beer and cheese pairing.
Okay.
At least one, it's definitely a goal, and on the laundry list of things to do to everything on the tap list have a cheese pairing with it, and do more menu pairing and everything. We're eating and drinking a lot, kind of collectively, and organically coming up with pairings, and recommending it bar side. And so someone gets a taster tray with a couple different beers, and we know this would go. The European board would be really, really lovely with this.
Very fun.
And so, that's kind of the fun part of the business that honestly we haven't had enough time for.
Totally. Well, that's what I think makes it. It makes it more fun when you've got it, like we were talking about earlier, this whole experience around it. So you're not just coming for the beer, but you're pairing that with the the food, and then the whole space creates an experience. And the people you're with, it becomes a very memorable thing that people can look back on and be like, oh yeah, that's where I had that great cheese and that citrus. Myrtle, and
totally.
Whatever else. So, what would these what would you pair? Maybe just food in general. What food would you say goes really well with this? What type of food?
Citrus Myrtle. We did a beer dinner actually at Zupan's Market last month, and paired a heavily seared, really rich fish, and there was a farro with spring vegetables underneath it. So you had this kind of rich, savory element, a lot of saltiness, and the acidity and the citrus element kind of cut through and softened all the really, really rich flavors. I'm a big.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, I'm a big contrast guy with. I think sour beers are pretty tough to pair with, but I really like sour beers against contrasting flavors. And so I always think about really rich meat dishes, kind of cutting through. Urban Farmhouse kind of pairs with everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've had this with Mexican food, with pizza. It's such a
this wide utility with this beer. It's amazing.
All around, just great, great beer. What is this one here? This is a new one, right?
So this is the first canned beer we've made. Yeah,
okay.
And it's
Pay No Attention to This IPA. Is that the name of it?
Yeah. So we. Up until recently, we were one of the 2 breweries in Portland that had never made an IPA.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was the other?
Occidental. So they still haven't made an IPA. There's, by my count, I think 5 or 6 in Oregon that do not make IPAs.
Wow, that's surprising. I thought that was if you didn't make an IPA, you couldn't operate beer in the state of Oregon.
Yeah. And when we opened up in the previous spot 5 years ago, like I was saying, Mike, Sean, and I, we wanted to craft these really refreshing beers, food-friendly, social-friendly, moderate alcohol, really inspired by European brewing tradition.
Sure.
Sean came to the brewery straight from brewing school in Munich, Germany, and so he brought a wide range of German brewing expertise. And so we've always had this kind of lager program right next to the Belgian beers. That I honestly think like the lagers we have downstairs right now are some of the best in the city. Sean has done an amazing job, kind of using his training and then just adding on top of it.
Totally.
So we have a Schwarzbier, a dark lager downstairs that is phenomenal. I think it's one of the best beers we've ever made.
Okay.
So we'll get you a taste after we're done.
Yes, please.
Okay. And so we wanted to craft these like really easy drinking beers and then kind of provide an alternative to the really assertive beers in Portland. I think, Portland beer up until recently has been known for, making really kind of dense, hoppy beers, dark beers, kind of, and craft beer in general. That's kind of historically how it's been, or at least the last decade. And we wanted to provide an alternative to that. There's a whole other family of beers that maybe should be showcased more.
Sure.
Part of that was not making an IPA kind of intentionally because, honestly, it's a competitive market.
Right.
There's so many IPAs around town. Right. We never said we weren't going to make an IPA. It took us a little bit to get around, but kind of in the last year, been thinking of
maybe we should,
going outside of our comfort zone a little bit and going beyond. There's definitely a rabid audience for these beers in our tasting room, and there was a lot of requests for the beers, so kind of the question of like, well, why aren't we drink IPAs? We love hoppy beer. Why aren't we making them?
Why don't you make one?
And we think we have a really good brewing team here, so it's not that we can't execute them well.
Are IPAs more difficult to make than this style of beer? Or I guess make it well.
Yeah, I think every beer is difficult to make really well. I'll go and say that making a really well made German Pilsner is one of the toughest things to do because there's nothing to hide behind. It's such a simple recipe, and the process is so like producing a really clean, well constructed beer. There's not a lot of flaws to hide behind.
So then, what? This might be too beer geek technical, and I'm not a great beer mind. But how do you define a successful or a great beer?
Whoa, that's a good question, actually.
Right? What is it? Cheers.
Cheers.
So smells good.
Yeah, thank you. There's a whole set of technical flaws that, like any other thing, like in the wine world,
that's really good.
You're looking for against the historical style. Right. There's guidelines and parameters. So that's one version of execution.
Sure.
And so, are any off flavors present, any sign of aging. And then there's this other thing on top of it of a balanced beer and an enjoyable beer, and I think that's really important. And so that's kind of, you have the foundation of a really technically well done beer, but there's this other element, this essence to the beer where, you think about like kind of referred to when you're judging competitions as the pint test. So when you're splitting hairs in a medal round, you have 6 really awesome beers. Most of them are worthy of a bronze, silver, or gold. And then it gets into the question of like, well, which one would I drink a full pint of? And which one would I, or maybe conversely, which one would I have a pint and then want to order a second pint of?
You're right. That's probably the bigger test,
and that,
right?
I think that's ultimately like a really well executed beer has that element to it where, you can enjoy it, but it's also not overwhelming and distracting. Like it's just well constructed, it's coherent. Like anything, like a really, really well constructed dish. You go to a great restaurant.
Right.
And you're like, wow, everything works together, and all the elements kind of still stand up on their own.
Yeah.
But they, they cohere and they weave together, and you just have this like really coherent dish that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So how much of that do you think is subjective versus, you take anybody with half a brain when it comes to beer, that they could, pick out of a blind tasting a good beer, an average beer, and a crappy beer.
Yep.
Like,
I think
is that.
I think there's a there's a baseline where it's objective, where diacetyl is a buttery compound that's produced during fermentation that in most beer styles is a flaw. If that's there, it's not supposed to be there, that's objectively a flaw.
That's gross.
You might subjectively enjoy that flavor and not mind it, but it's objectively. But I think that other essence element is way more subjective, and that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
That's where, people, any kind of nerd, like music nerds will say, no, this
Yes.
X band is better than Y,
Right.
or in the beer world, they're like,
Yeah.
I'm always of the philosophy, and this goes to my bottle shop days, where, rather than saying a beer sucks or a beer is bad, unless it's like legitimately, like I'm saying, objectively flawed.
Like
with
this
technical
beer
flaw.
has problems.
Yeah,
Do not buy this. Yeah.
Everything outside of that, it's like the equation is like, oh, it's not for me. It's not my thing.
Yes.
And
I've heard that a lot. That's what that's what they're doing. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's really true. And that's why there's more than one brewery, and there's dozens and dozens and dozens of different beer styles,
Right.
because we're all unique individuals, and we all have different preferences, and we're not always going to meet on the same level.
Totally.
And that's why we have 12 taps in our tasting room.
And one-cider, right?
Yeah, and one-cider. Thank you.
Yep.
And now wine by the glass too.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that new?
Yeah, we decided to do it a couple weeks ago, and it's been going really well.
That's awesome. From
mainly
I assume
from
local vineyards.
Mainly from Twist Winery out in
Pacific City. That's our favorite winery. They're is it the Stumbling Block or the one with the crossword puzzle on the label?
We have that downstairs. Yeah, that's our red right now. Yeah.
I think the only place you can buy it is at the the PSU Farmers Market.
Yeah, Shannon comes in every weekend and then now making a delivery to us every Friday.
So I could buy a bottle down here?
Yeah.
My wife is going to be so happy with me.
It's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. How did you connect with them? Another tangent.
There's a family connection.
Okay.
Between Mike and Shannon. Yeah.
Okay. That's
so
awesome. Very cool.
We go way, way back with them. And
Very
there's always,
cool.
we're kind of, Shannon is, her brother is the owner of Russian River Brewing Company.
I did not know that. Okay.
One of kind of the godfathers of American craft beer,
Sure.
or the modern movement of American craft beer. And so that's a place where you always get Russian River, obviously, and then we're kind of, Russian River makes, really awesome hoppy stuff and great sour stuff, and then she almost always has Urban Farmhouse on. It's kind of like,
very cool.
This is just, if someone comes in and just wants a beer, I can
this
get
is
that
the one,
to them. Yeah.
We kind of blew by this, but so the what is it called? Pay No Attention IPA. This is really good. It's not very hoppy.
Yeah,
it's kind of
gone through a little bit of a lifespan. It was canned. Honestly, it's kind of interesting to have it. This is kind of,
you don't can it here, I assume.
We brought in a mobile canner to do it.
Okay.
It's about it was canned last month, and we're learning. We're learning about the lifespan and age of hoppy beers. When it was canned, it was really intensely tropical fruit, and now I think it's kind of evolved where it's got this kind of juniper, piney, blueberry element to it. It's
blueberry,
interesting. It's got
interesting.
much softer.
6.5% alcohol.
Yeah, it's a collaboration with Grains of Wrath Brewing,
Yeah,
which
I just saw that.
a new,
Very cool.
soon-to-be brewery in Camas, Washington.
That's fun. Do you guys do many collaborations
We
with?
love doing collaborations. Yeah. It's kind of an excuse to hang out with other brewers, learn stuff, and drink beer.
There's so many different festivals around, and I feel like it's always just brewers are like, let's just go hang out with our friends and drink beer and get people to pay for it and buy our beer. And
it's not
such
bad.
A great.
Yeah,
isn't that awesome? Yeah.
We just did a collaboration up in Vancouver, BC. And actually, Travis, who went up there, he's our tasting room manager, and he has cousins that live close to the brewery. And his car got stolen from the hotel, and it turned into this huge ordeal. It was supposed to be like a quick trip, turned into this saga.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not
Damn
good.
Canadians. Yeah.
Canadians. My sister-in-law. One of my sister-in-laws is Canadian. So
sorry, we love Canada for the official record. Yeah.
No, just kidding. Yeah. So this is great. So you guys just decided we're gonna do an IPA. We're gonna.
Why not?
The people want it. So is this gonna become a? Will this be on tap forever, or just
it's kind of a thing we're just
seasonal?
Gonna do.
Okay.
We've been making an IPA to keep on tap in the tasting room. In fact, we just kegged the next one today, and the recipe's been different every single time.
Oh.
Part of that, it keeps it fun for us.
Sure.
The real kind of unromantic answer is the hop market is very competitive, and so
I'm learning.
It's really hard to make for a brewery like us where we don't have strong hop contracting relationships and buying power and stuff. Like we kind of have to use the hops that we can get. We've been lucky enough, the collaborative nature, we've been able to buy hops from other breweries
to get something.
To get some cool citras and mosaics and everything.
That's interesting. I guess I've never thought about the fact of the ingredients that you buy or have access to determines the type of beer you're able to make and the quality of it.
It's really complicated for breweries bigger than us that do have a year-round IPA that they're canning or bottling year-round, and you have to base the recipe on, all right, we're going to have X amount of bottles. We need Y amount of hops.
Right.
All right, well, we can't use those 3 hops because we can't acquire enough.
We don't have any. Yeah.
Or we have to use less of them and make it up with a different hop variety.
So this is Vic, Secret, Denali, Citra, and Waimea hops.
Yep, Waimea hops.
That's quite the
so a couple of new hops that we have.
Of hops in there.
The Vic Secret, Denali, and Waimea was the first time we used them, and they're newer hop varieties that. The Vic Secrets are really there's a more common descriptor for the new hops where it's diesel. So kind of like gasoline.
Okay.
That was a descriptor that I never really. I would get hints of it.
What does that mean? How do it taste diesel-y?
Smells like a kind of gasoline.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. And so as a layering hop, it provides complexity.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, you don't want that to be the dominant note for just apparent reasons. But
it's like, this is the great
kind of almost thinking about layering hops like you would seasoning a dish.
Sure.
And sometimes an element like a diesel note might boost other tropical fruit elements, say, or woody elements. And so it was kind of cool to learn about that. The Denali's were like straight pineapple when they were young. So I think the first week this beer like tasted like pineapple juice. Yeah.
So you say the first week. Are you talking about like as it's aged, it takes on different flavors and different?
Yeah. And hoppy beers. I mean, for those of you that cellar beer out there, don't age hoppy beers because the flavor compounds are really volatile. They go away pretty quickly. So that's a beer that you want to drink fresh. And you want to keep cold to preserve those flavors versus other beers, maybe can afford a little bit of time. Especially higher alcohol beers might mellow out with time and develop different flavors that are more pleasurable.
So something I recently learned, and I'd be curious your take, is hoppy and bitter aren't necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So, I mean, traditionally, IPAs were, dominated by bitter hop compounds.
Sure.
And so you think about it
as kind of like
back end bitterness.
Accidentally, you mean? Or
no, I mean that was just became the stylistic standard. Bitterness was the kind of the launching point. And over the last few years, especially, there's been a transition. So the bittering compounds come out of boiling hops for a long period of time.
Oh.
So at the beginning of the boil, you add hops, and there's a chemical process that happens when they're heated that. You get bittering compounds out of the hops. So brewers have been transitioning and adding more of their hop load towards the end of the boil or during fermentation or after fermentation.
Okay.
And you're not getting that heating process, but you are extracting, essential oils and other acids that are more aromatic or flavorful, and they haven't been converted or boiled off or anything.
Okay.
And so kind of the way IPAs are moving, and a lot of beer styles in general, are lower bitterness, kind of more dry, not as heavily malted, and more on fruity flavor, aromatic elements. And I think, to me, that's more drinkable, and I think that can appeal to a more broad audience. Because some people just don't like bitterness. I mean, we generally, as a brewery, we're all pretty sensitive to bitterness. We've never really made bitter beers. And that's just our personal preference. Yeah. But I see more of the hoppy beers kind of.
Right.
It's pretty common to not add any bittering hops now.
Maybe why I'm more drawn. Not saying anything against other breweries, but why I'm more drawn to you guys because I don't like a lot of bitter. I'm not a bitter. My father-in-law loves like the more bitter the better.
Mm-hmm. That was a thing for a while.
Yeah,
when I got into craft beer, I definitely kind of developed through hard work actually like a taste for bitterness, and then it just, like I said, it stopped one day.
It's interesting,
and I haven't gone back. I drink some of the beers that I liked maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where the recipe's still the same.
So what beer or brewery do you like when you're not drinking your own stuff? Do you have a couple of fans? A couple that you're a fan of?
Locally, there's so many great breweries locally.
Yeah,
I think we've always had a big affinity for Upright.
Yes.
We wouldn't be here if Upright didn't. Upright was the first brewery in Oregon to embrace Belgian beer styles.
Sure. And the open fermentation thing.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the most special places to drink beer. I mean, it's if you haven't been
in a basement.
there,
We did a run with them last year.
Oh, great. Yeah.
It's an interesting space, but
it's cool. It's kind of like speakeasy or like your nerdy homebrewing buddy that has a lot of disposable income, and you go to the basement in his house and you're like, what's going on here?
That's exactly how I would describe. Those are perfect words for that place.
But they make they make beers that inspire us. They're layered and complex and beautiful and really drinkable. I mean, I keep talking about this balance thing, like that's such an important part.
Absolutely.
And they constantly just, I think, they have one of the best brewing teams in the country.
They're good people.
And then we really love Freem too. I think that
Hood River.
Hood River. I mean, it's a great place. They're great people, which you can
great
say
location.
Really great location.
The river there.
Yeah, but they're across the board. I think their lineup in the last year or two has been exceptional.
Yeah.
I have a personal affinity for like the
New Jersey beers.
New Jersey beers, yeah. Not really much of that yet.
Are there any?
There's a couple.
Okay.
Next time I go back, there's some newer breweries that I need to check out.
Does your family still live in New Jersey?
Yep. Yeah. Not a lot of brewing happening there.
Yeah.
But I really, really love like the spontaneous fermented beers of Belgium. So the Lambic and Goose style beers like Cantillon and Dre Fontaine and Boone and everything.
Okay.
Those are, I think, those are kind of the art project beers of the brewing world. And you're getting a taste of the terroir, that specific area, because there's not a lot of human intervention in those beers.
Right.
And then there's a blending element where they're taking a stock of barrels and blending different percentages to arrive at a flavor point, and that's where the human intervenes. So those beers are kind of
fascinating process.
They're an expression of that, the brewer's palate. More, more than all beers are an expression of the brewer's palate, but that's like specifically unique. You get to taste like the exacting blend.
How much do you guys make beer, or how much is your process is based on like what the customers want versus what you guys like and enjoy, or is it
we pay attention to
balance?
Both. Yeah. There's a lot of, it's not a canned answer. Both is true.
Right.
We obviously, there's definitely beers that we really like that don't have a big customer following, but we still brew them every year. Maybe
like
not
them?
as much, but we really love them.
That's cool.
And then, there isn't a beer that we don't like that we repeatedly brew. That hasn't happened yet.
There's not one you're like, gosh, we hate this farmhouse,
but it makes so much money.
Yeah, so we gotta keep doing it.
No, that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
Which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But I think everything definitely starts with our palates, what we want. There's an idea that somebody in the building has, and we kind of run with it. And then I think the batch size is kind of dictated by what the customer wants more than the recipe formulation.
Right.
And so, there might be Fleur de Ferme's a great beer. We make it every fall. It's a dark farmhouse ale with hibiscus, lavender, and chamomile. Really strange beer. Is
that a good beer before bed with a chamomile?
Oh my God, I love that beer. I love really floral beers. And so we've been making it for years. It was a bottled seasonal for a while. Never really was successful in the market. So we kind of have shrunk down the batch size every year, but we love drinking that beer, and it does have a little bit of a micro following, so we'll keep making it.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
We'd love to do bigger batches of it, but there's just not a market for it. But
that's for the business. So I think sometimes people forget. There's all this talk of, when breweries sell out to larger breweries, and I think sometimes people forget that there's the art and then there's the business that goes into a brewery, and you still have to make money.
You have to be considerate of both.
Yeah, you have to pay the bills. You have to whatever, but
it's complicated.
Most
breweries, even if they seem bigger than they are, they're operating as a small business in terms of capital and flexibility and everything. And so there is a reality to it. I mean, sure. Do we have a whole list of ideas that we would love to see through? Yeah, but like, how many of them have we been able to do?
Getting new tables.
Yeah, like getting new tables. Or I think a lot about. We have a barrel program that I think is really good, and we have a lot of ideas for barrel aged beers, and a lot of them are dependent on finishing with like really the abundance of fresh fruit that we have.
Right.
And our budget kind of dictates the batch size on that. Like, how many bottles can we produce based on the fruit that we can afford?
Sure.
Yeah, and it's a successful beer, and we can't just double it because there's not the budget to buy twice the amount of fruit
or the availability, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly with hops.
Yeah,
so I think
cool.
there are those realities, and you just try to handle them as best as you can.
Gotta make sure you stay in business so you keep doing what you love, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, Josh, I told you that we would talk about 20-30 minutes, and it's been an hour.
Oh, wow. That kind of flew by.
It did.
Well, that means we were having fun.
It did, exactly. I also said that, it depended on how chatty we were. So, but this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you sharing the common story with us, the delicious beer, and just to recap, the Urban Farmer, one of my favorites, the Citrus Myrtle, which is new to me.
Yep. That's
and delicious.
One of the beers. And then Pay No Attention.
Pay No Attention IPA.
Yeah.
And what will be available on June 3rd when we're here? These two, this is not...
this one won't be available. Urban Farmhouse is always available. That's our one year-round beer.
Okay.
Everything else we make is kind of in and out. Yeah, so that's our true flagship. Citrus Myrtle will still be around, and then
awesome.
Kind of almost every week we're putting a new beer on tap. So
very cool.
I mean, for people that kind of want a sneak preview, you might come in tomorrow and then come in for the run, and you're going to see kind of a completely different tap list.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, in this Citrus Myrtle, again, June 3rd would be a great after post-run beer. And just as a reminder, if you haven't registered, you can register with either promo code Commons Free. If you're one of the first 5 people to do that, you can get in for free, or Commons 5 and get $5 off. And because they have a little bit smaller space here, we're limited to only 75 participants at this one. So if you're interested in this, you might want to hop on right now. Because I think I haven't checked recently, but I know that we're at least halfway to that.
Oh, great!
Halfway that number.
Great.
So we're excited. Yeah. Fun to run here. So Josh, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we will see you on June 3rd. Maybe you'll run. Maybe you'll be facilitating everybody else's enjoyment.
We'll see.
But yeah,
maybe
so
both.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Cool.
Thanks for watching. And I will see you on June 3rd here at Commons Brewery.
Great.
See you later.